Okay, in this lesson, we're going to wrap up our series on land navigation by talking about what to do if you get lost. So it's a little bit windy today. I apologize if that's picking up on the microphone. So getting lost is one of the scariest things you can do in the wilderness, and it's how many wilderness survival situations start. People get lost, they don't know how to get out, they either die of thirst, dehydration, or heat stroke, or in the cold, they die by freezing to death. And so one of the first things when it comes to getting lost is that hopefully, you've already followed all of the rules so that when you get lost, the best thing to do is just to stay put. And that's what most survival books will say, and that's what I say, and that's what I learned as a kid, right? If you ever get lost, you just stay put. And that's great if you have followed all of the proper steps and you told someone where you're going to be, when you were going to get back. They are alerting the authorities that you're missing and you have people looking for you. Just stay put and just wait. And keep in your mind, remembering that people are looking for you, okay? And hold to that confidence, because what happens when you get lost is, and I have been lost, so I'm talking from firsthand experience and from literature I've read on the topic. What happens is you get really you go into a panic, okay? The very first response that your brain has to getting lost is to panic. And we don't want to be panicking. So the very, very first thing people say is stop, relax. Some people even say maybe, start a fire, eat lunch, sit down, and retrace your steps and calm down. The very first thing you want to do when you get lost is calm down, because this fear, this panic that starts to happen when you get lost is usually what makes people do things that they later regret, that make them even more lost. It usually, makes people think, well, let me just go over the next hill and see where I can go. Or let me turn around and start going back. I think it's this way. Or sometimes they just start booking it in whatever direction because they're just so nervous, and their nervousness gets the best of them. So the very first thing we want to do when we get lost is stop and mark your direction of travel and mark the location you're at right away. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so what I've done here is I have made this little arrow of rocks, and this denotes my last known direction of travel. So we're assuming this is the direction I was traveling in when I first realized I was lost. The next thing I did was I put a little marker, okay? And so the reason I'm doing this is because we're assuming in this situation that we've broken all the rules. We didn't tell someone where we were going. We didn't bring a map and compass with us. No one knows where we're at. And so this is a last resort technique of what to do when you get lost. And I've used this technique when I broke all the rules and I got lost in South Florida in a place you really don't want to be lost. And this technique is really good that I'm about to show you for whenever you know that the trail that you need to get back to is close, but you don't quite know which direction it is. And so when you're in a really featureless landscape, like South Florida, really flat, not a whole lot of visibility, or when you're in the desert, when a lot of times it may be flat, depending on what desert you're in, or even if it's not flat, everything starts to blend in together. All the hills, everything starts to look the same. So what we want to do in that circumstance, we want to stop, we want to curb our panic, calm down, relax, think, but immediately you want to mark your direction of travel and your last known location. Because what that's going to do is that means if I was walking that way when I first realized I was lost, that means this whole area is not the right direction to go. And we want to remember that. We don't want to, start walking around in circles in the area we get lost in, and then suddenly you forgot where you even were when you got lost. So then you're even further lost. So what this does is it puts a marker for us and says, okay, yeah, we're lost, but we're not going to get any more lost than we are right here. Okay, so this ensures that we're not going to get any more lost. So now the technique I'm going to show you, again, I want to reiterate, it's a last resort technique. We're assuming you broke all the rules, and when I used this technique in South Florida to find my trail, I was lost for maybe a few hours, and I could have easily been lost for a few days. But what I actually used was not flagging tape. I'm assuming you're gonna bring flagging tape with you and you want a generous amount of it to do this technique. But what I actually used were tall oak trees. In South Florida, the tall oak trees were not super common. They were pretty scattered out. And so instead of using flagging tape like I'm going to show you, I ended up using really tall oak trees because I could see them from a distance, and they stuck out from the surrounding forest, which was mostly pine and swamp cabbage palm. So mostly pine and palm trees in that area, or cypress trees, but the tall oaks you could see from a distance, and they were scattered enough where you wouldn't mix them all up. So what I did was I hopped from tall oak tree to tall oak tree in a relatively straight line. I would look and I would say, okay, I can see 2 oak trees in the distance, one there and one there, and I saw one behind me. So you use a line of 3 tall oak trees to hop from one to another to travel in a straight line. So what we're going to be doing with this technique is traveling in a straight line. So here we have our direction of travel arrow going that way, which means we need to start fanning out that way in different directions. And we're going to use this as our starting place. Okay, so let's say we want to go directly backwards, which seems most logical, or we've thought about it and we've decided, okay, I think I took a turn at such and such, you know, whatever. So then we want to move in a straight line going that way. Well, immediately you see this Palo Verde tree in my way. So what we're going to do is we're going to go put a marker on that tree on both sides of it, so one on this side and one on that side, and then we're going to continue in the same way in a straight line. Let's go ahead and go do that. Okay, so now I put one marker on this side of the tree, I put another on that side of the tree, so that when we are on our return trip we see this, and then we can see the other marker so we know to keep going in that direction. And then we have our first marker over there, and you can't see it on the camera. Now, a couple things with these. First of all, you want to have a generous amount of this stuff. You don't want to put a tiny little marker. You want to have some hanging down, because this very quickly becomes invisible at a distance. You're not going to be able to see this from very far away. So you don't want to space these out too far, and you want to keep it high up as you can reach, so that you can see it when you're coming back. Now, the best thing to do with these is to make sure you're going in a straight line. You can, especially when you have flagging tape, change directions if you want to. And to do that, you would put one marker here and then one on the side of the tree that you're going, so you know when you get to this tree to look in that direction for the next marker. The thing is, the more you do that, the more it's going to confuse you. So the best thing to do is stay in a straight line. And again, if you don't have markers, you can still use things like rocks, like little piles of rocks on both sides of the tree, but that's going to become increasingly difficult to stay on your path and not get even further lost. So like I said, I did use oak trees. In the Sonoran Desert, theoretically, you could use tall saguaro cactus. You could hop in a straight line from cactus to cactus to cactus, because in some areas, not really in this area, because they're pretty common out here, as you can see, in some areas they're spread out enough where you can do something like that. But again, that is like a really last resort survival technique. I would never recommend someone would navigate like that, or even what I'm doing, really. You know, I've given you plenty of ways to navigate without using these crude types of techniques. But let's go ahead and continue, because we are assuming, you know, we were a dummy and broke the rules. So now, maintaining a straight line, I can see the other marker through the tree. So I'm going to maintain that straight line, turn around, and on to the next Palo Verde, where we'll put our next marker. Okay, so off in the distance, I can see my other marker out there. Coming up to the tree, I placed a marker here. And then on the other side of this tree, I place my second marker here. Now I'm going to come and try to line up my straight line and kind of look through this tree to your previous tree, your marker, make sure that you're still in that nice straight line. Turn around and then get your next point. And as you practice this, you can sort of gauge how far apart you can get away with putting the markers. before you're unable to see them. But because you're in a straight line, theoretically, even if somehow for whatever reason you either couldn't see your marker on the way back or it fell off the tree or something like that, you still know which direction you were going in a straight line. So you basically are creating this line in nature that you can follow to help you prevent getting lost even further. Okay, and so I think I've sort of hammered home the point. And now you want to follow a straight line for as long as you think, however lost you think you are. Say you think you're, close to the trail, you're maybe a quarter mile away, then you do it for a quarter mile or a little bit more than a quarter mile. And then if you don't find your trail, you say, okay, I guess this wasn't the right direction. So then you come back and you could leave your flagging tape up, or you could take it down. It sort of depends on, the circumstances. If you leave it up, you run the risk of getting confused with other lines, or you could throw searchers, searchers, if they see your flagging tape, that could be helpful to them because they could know, okay, he's in this area because he's been, we found some of his trails, it's probably him, type of thing. So you want to just think about that type of stuff. Today, obviously, we're going to take it down. I never leave this stuff up. They do have a biodegradable version of this flagging tape, but I still say take it down anyway. And I wanted to mention that this is actually a really similar technique to what is used for people who travel over ice. Okay, people who are traveling over snowfields that have no trees or no discernible features, what they'll actually do is carry a large number of bamboo poles that have little markers on the top, and they will shove those down into the snow, and every member of the party will carry, a certain number of these little bamboo poles, and so they'll shove them down into the snow so that they can find their way back. And they literally use a very similar method to this to navigating as an everyday navigation technique, which is perfectly fine. In this type of environment, your typical forest jungles, things like that, this is going to be last resort, but it's interesting to note that over snowfields, this is the go-to navigation technique. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to our first known location, and I'll show you very quickly what we do next. Okay, now we're back at our original marker, and we're assuming that we've went however far we thought we needed to go to ensure that the trail or whatever we're trying to find is not in the direction we just went. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down to our little direction of travel arrow that we first put down, and we want to remember which directions we've already went. We want to help ourselves out. We don't want to try to memorize all of this stuff because you're going to get turned around and confused. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to put a little marker. We're going to say, okay, we went that way, and we're going to put a little X on it, just like that. And so this little X is denoting, okay, we tried that direction, and that's a no-go. Okay, so now we know it's not this way because that's the way we were walking when we got lost. And now we know it's not that way because we tried that direction. And so now you'll go to your second most, the direction you think it is next. So now we'll say, okay, maybe now we'll go that way. Okay, so we went that way already, didn't find anything. Next, we'll go this way. Okay, after we have went that way, maybe we find the trail, hopefully. If not, we come back here, and we go that way. Okay, and we keep doing that until we find our trail. So guys, that's pretty much it. Like I said, if you're doing all of the things before you leave your home, if you're checking a map, if you brought your map with you, if you brought your compass with you, if you're actually using your compass, you're not just, letting it sit in your backpack until you get lost, but you're using it. You're saying, okay, which direction did I leave from the car? Which direction could I walk and find a road? Things like that, things we've been talking about through this whole course. Then you'll probably never need this technique. The problem with this technique is that if you didn't do any of those things, chances are you probably don't have flagging tape on you either, okay? So it's not really going to be anything good it's not going to be good for you to know this, because you're not even going to have your flag. If you don't have your compass and your map and you've done all those things, you probably don't have flagging tape either. The second thing is, if you do have flagging tape, you have to have a pretty generous amount, because it starts to run out pretty quick. So I usually have a little like ball of it, a little roll, but you just want to make sure it's a nice, size. So go practice this and to try to see, kind of how much you need, because you will need a bit. And again, like I said, to summarize, you can actually use other things if you don't have flagging tape. You can use natural features like trees or piles of rocks, but again, that's really dangerous, because it's really easy to confuse. Wait, was it that tree or was it that tree? Was it that saguaro cactus? Was it, let's see, wait, which direction is the next pile of rocks? Is it this way? Okay, so again, last resort technique here that I just showed you, it has helped me find my way when I was lost. Okay, like I said, I used big oak trees in South Florida, and I was in a really remote wilderness area that I could have, if I chose the wrong direction, I would have kept going, and there wasn't any road to stop me. I would have just kept going. So I ended up finding my trail. I knew I was really close to my trail, got a little sidetracked. I was looking at rabbit trails and practicing doing some tracking and just kind of looking at plants, and then I just looked up, and suddenly I realized, oh dang, I'm kind of confused on where I am. But luckily I knew I wasn't too far off, so I was able to use a very similar technique to what I showed you to find my way. So hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. Hope you never get lost, but if you do, stay calm. Don't let the panic get the best of you. Mark your location right where you are when you got lost. Mark your direction of travel. Sit down and think before you act. Have a good one.